Rachel, welcome to Halloween
Hi.
Daily. Thank you so much for joining us today and talking to us.
Thank you for having me. This is my first interview I've ever given on anything, honestly. So I'm really, really excited to talk to you today.
Oh, well, we are super honored to be your first interview, and what an occasion it is with
Mhm.
a little movie that we're going to talk about that you're in and we're a part of, and the movie that's out in theaters right now called Halloween Kills. And it's a great time to be talking about it and to be a fan of all things Michael Myers.
Uh-huh.
And we just celebrated the Halloween holiday itself as we're
Hmm.
recording this. It's the week after Halloween, and
Hmm.
so we've got a lot of to talk about, and including your journey from the Lost Colony to Haddonfield, and might
Hmm.
educate a few viewers about the Lost Colony of Roanoke
Yeah.
Island a little bit if they don't know along the way. Um, but we always start off with the holiday itself and a little bit
Hmm.
about what Halloween means to you. So, do you celebrate Halloween? And have you, if so, did you celebrate growing up or not so
Um,
much?
Definitely growing up, like I lived in a small town, loved the trick-or-treating, loved the
Mm-hmm.
events and everything. As a in my old age, I kind of don't do it as much, but
Mm-hmm.
I love Halloween, and I realized a while back it's kind of because I do weird things all the time. Because obviously I've become a stunt performer, I've been a circus performer, I dress up in weird costumes. I love cosplay. Don't do it as much as I wish I did, a whole lot. So I kind of view Halloween as like everyone else's opportunity to be
Yeah.
weird and crazy and kind of step out of their comfort zone. I wasn't really able to do much this year because my work schedule, and I was on a shoot yesterday, and we had all the prep in the days before that. Last year, actually, during the pandemic, I did do a little like Kim Possible cosplay costume.
Mm-hmm.
I had red hair back then.
Mm-hmm.
That was amazing, but I literally put the costume on, took photos, took it off, went to my day job. So
Mm-hmm.
haven't gotten to do a whole lot of Halloween stuff lately, but I love it's the spooky season. We get to embrace all of these weird things
Yeah.
that I like to embrace all the time. So we love Halloween.
So in some ways, you're even more like us with every day is Halloween for you.
Hmm.
And I've talked to other actors and performers that have said similar things, that they don't get costumed as much because they are always costumed and playing characters so often.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And it's not always comfy. Like I was like I said, I was on a shoot yesterday and was wigged and
mhm.
I was in a pretty normal outfit, but you're padded up and everything, and it can be a little uncomfortable. So some nights you just don't want to go out and try and be social at the same time, so you don't want to get yourself out there. But yeah.
So going back to some of those childhood Halloweens or more recent ones, what is your favorite Halloween costume and your favorite Halloween candy?
Oh, dots are
Okay,
definitely my
yep,
favorite Halloween candy. I've recently like rediscovered my love for gummy candies, but dots were always my favorite thing. I try to get them as much as possible. And I'm
nice.
weird that I guess because I like almond joys. Some
Hmm.
people don't, because some people don't like coconut. I love
Yeah.
almond joys. Yeah, those are my top. I'd say my favorite Halloween costumes, I've done Harley Quinn multiple times as early
Hmm.
as high school. I
Hmm.
actually have a photo of me and my best friend from high school. We were at a dance as Harley and the Joker. I was just in like a store-bought Halloween costume, and it was that was a lot of fun. I actually bought a costume this past year of the Harley from the new Suicide Squad movie.
Hmm. Yep.
But I like bought it from China, so it already kind of didn't fit. So I
Oh,
was
yeah.
like, we're gonna put that away for a little bit and bust that out another time.
Right.
But yeah,
Awesome.
Harley Quinn, because she's always been one of my favorite comic book characters and Batman villains. I don't even consider her a villain, honestly, just one of my favorite characters. So that's always been a lot of fun, is to put on a Harley costume. So.
Very cool. Like you said, an awesome character. Um, how about scary movies? Are you a fan of scary movies?
I hope this is where I don't get destroyed by your audience, but I'm not. I
No,
didn't really
that's
grow. I didn't really grow up with horror, but I knew enough, like when this project came along, like I knew enough about Halloween. But when I do get into scary movies, it's because I really like the mythology of it. Like I really love like the Saw franchise. I think how they built that mythology was really great. I loved how they ended it. The Paranormal Activity I really like a lot, although I haven't caught some of the more recent ones. And then I do love things like American Horror Story and some of those fun kind of horror-based TV shows are really enjoyable. But I think I've been scarred by I had that's some horror movies that I watched a little too young, or some thrillers I watched a little too young. So it's not something I always seek out, but when I do, I really do like to get into it. And like when this project came along, I knew it was the continuity was the original Halloween and then the 2018 Halloween. So I just watched those movies to kind of get that idea. And then recently, podcast, do you know the podcast, How Did This Get Made?
I'm not familiar with that one.
It's a movie podcast. They review historically bad movies, but not always. They just kind of like movies that they enjoy. But they re-released an old episode of them doing Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. Or did I say that right? Season of the Witch. And just listening to that, I was like, what what is the history of this franchise? I need to dig into this. And then I found out later that they referenced that in this movie with the Halloween Mask, which is just one of those little hidden gems that David Gordon Green and that team really like to throw in there. So
oh, absolutely. And we love those hidden gems and those Easter eggs, and love them bringing those masks back into this current continuity and this current canon of the franchise. So how did you first become interested in acting or just performing in general, I guess I should say?
I say I came to it late, but not necessarily. I was around middle school. I was kind of always a little like I was in music. I did like band and things like that, and I discovered musical theater through the movie version of Rent. And just there was something about that. I just remember in the moment being like, I want to be a part of telling stories like this. So I got into theater in high school, and eventually did go to school for acting. I did a lot of musical theater and studied music and dance and things like that. But the acting program I went to was largely Shakespeare based. And then kind of in that process, I discovered stage combat. Which is, the sword fighting and, fake punches and stuff for theater, and really kind of dove headfirst into that. And that also, because I did a lot of historical outdoor drama before I went to the Lost Colony. So those were my wetting my feet a little bit. And it's funny because looking back, like some of my favorite things I used to watch growing up were like Lord of the Rings and Power Rangers and some like weird things like that. And so I look back, I'm like, oh, no wonder that this is how I ended up. Because I wasn't necessarily like an athletic child or anything like that. I didn't take any kind of martial arts growing up. So then people that know me from back then, now they're like, how did you end up there, doing that? So I moved to Atlanta after my summer at the Lost Colony, but that was after college, and was still kind of pursuing the acting thing. And then through some stage combat friends, I ended up getting together with some stunt people and starting to train in things like Kali and kickboxing. I also started doing some circus performing because I was a dancer. I did some aerial arts, stilt walking, weird things like that, atmosphere for corporate events. And kind of, I say I got lucky in that I was a type that's, pretty sought after of, skinny girls that are a little bit taller. And that's how I, met the right people, networking. I had a great mentor, put me into the stunt world. And I always loved acting, and I still do. But I decided, I was like, I kind of just need to put that on the back burner. And the joke I always make is stunts is a little less emotionally traumatizing than acting is, which is a weird thing to think, but there's a lot less personal, stuff that kind of goes into that. And the other thing is, as stunt performers, what we do is acting. It's just acting through action or through movement and violence in most cases. So I take a lot of the things that I learned in my acting training into consideration when I'm performing, whether it's as myself in an ND part or when I'm doubling. I like to, know a little bit more about the character if I can before I jump into a project. So.
Oh, absolutely. And I agree too that it is totally acting. And I've talked to other, stunt performers. Just recently we talked to Douglas Tate, who also
He's an
worked
actor, yeah.
on Halloween Kills, and he says the same thing, that he considers himself an actor first and foremost, and the work he does acting is just a different kind of. And I would totally agree with that as well. Um, so that is interesting that through the stage acting, you found your way into doing more and more of the stage combat, and that led into the film stunt work. So, what was it about that? Was it just the excitement, or what was it about that part of
I
it
don't
that
know, man.
attracted you?
There's just something about like the first time you put a sword in your hand and you're just like, this is really cool. And I
Yeah.
still have those moments all the time, like when you're like doing an intense fight scene or learning a new skill and you're just like, this is so cool. And actually I used to say this, so when I was at the Lost Colony, which I'm sure we'll talk about soon, I was one of the burning girls, and people would be like, why do you want to get set on fire every night? And I'd be like, because I'm kind of defying God in a way. Like I'm doing this thing in a safe way that looks dangerous, and coming out on the end of it. But also because like I'm in my heart not a violent person. Most stunt people that you meet are not. But it's kind of like a fun way to still like play with that side of yourself and of the world. And it's just such a specific and interesting way to tell a story, especially when you get into like how a character fights and why they do certain things and various things. So that's why that's what I think, at least. And moving into that, there's something also about having something specific that you kind of can specialize in, which is why I think I really got into stage combat, because even in the smallest theaters, it's better to have someone with that kind of knowledge to keep people safe, because people will get hurt if they're not doing these things properly. And it's possible to have a very realistic, visceral, amazing fight scene without people having to get hurt. And so we're all just there to protect each other at the end of the day.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So when you said that you were doing a lot of outdoor historical dramas, was it because of that, I guess, that a lot of them do have more of like the stage combat type stuff, or
not
is that
initially.
what?
So not initially. I right out of high school, I got an internship at an outdoor theater in West Virginia. It's called Theater West Virginia. They do a show called Hatfields and McCoys, which is the famous family feud between a family from West Virginia and Kentucky. They also did a story about the founding of West Virginia called Honey in the Rock. And I got this internship, and it was a lot of fun, really intense, because we were being trained in musical theater while also we performed 4 or 5 shows that summer. Was the repertory theater. And that was my first introduction, well, not my first introduction to stage combat. I'd taken some classes at like theater conferences and such, but my first time seeing it applied, and not just fight scenes, but using the theatrical weapons and and some sword play, things like that. And I met some awesome people there. This wonderful guy named Jake Gwynn, who's still one of my closest friends here in Atlanta. Met him almost 10 years ago, and his father is a fight master as well. And I started to kind of learn about this world, which I thought was so interesting. But it still took me a couple of years to finally be like, oh, I think I want to do more of this. And so it just kind of came out of like what opportunities were coming to me. And then the following summer, I worked at a different outdoor drama in Ohio called Trumpet in the Land. Then the next one I did was Lost Colony, which was after college. And by that point, I was really seeking out shows where I could, do a little more gritty, fighty, cool stuff like that.
So by the time the Lost Colony, you said you were actually actively looking for challenges like that, like more stunt. So that brings us to our local tie-in. For those of you that don't know, HDN is based out of the Outer Banks of North Carolina, where they do the outdoor drama of the Lost Colony of Roanoke Island, and it's the first unsolved mystery of America. I call it America's first urban legend, and it's great. They've been doing it for over 75 years now. I think 80 years now.
So, yeah.
And it's done pretty much on the spot where the story takes place. And I've seen it, like I said, a couple of times in my life over the years. The first time I was very little, and we were here on vacation long before I lived here, and I saw it more recently, as an adult, and really appreciated just the scope of it. It's a story that, for those that don't know, I mean, it's got everything. It's there's a love story in it. There's adventure. There's fighting. There's and there's mystery, and it's all historical, and there's drama, of course. There's drama,
Yeah.
and music, and so it's got everything. It's literally got everything thrown in there. So how did you get involved with the Lost Colony?
I had heard about the Lost Colony through the years, obviously working in a similar sphere, and it was kind of seen as like this really cool job that if you can get it, it's like the top of the top tier. And it was my senior year of college. I was auditioning a bunch of places, and I had some friends who had worked there. And I think I even thought of myself at the time, like, oh, I don't think I'm good enough for the Lost Colony, but I sent in a tape anyway. And I was reaching a point where I hadn't gotten any of the other things that I had applied for. I was facing, graduating and not knowing what I was going to do next. I went to school up in Cleveland, actually. And I remember I was in class and I pick up my phone and I have a voicemail from our mutual friend, Lance Culpepper, who connected us for this. And I looked up at the press, was like, I gotta go. Because it was a North Carolina phone number, and it was Lance offering me the Lost Colony. And I was so excited. And I knew they were doing some cool stuff that summer, because it was the first year they were bringing back this gag in the big battle called The Burning Girl. And so I got there, I had packed up my dorm room into my car. I actually missed my commencement because our first day of rehearsals was on the day of my graduation, and I didn't want to miss that. And you get there, and the Outer Banks, just from my first impression, I'd never been there growing up, just was so beautiful. And I like, it's cheesy to say, but I really do believe the Outer Banks has got a magical place. And you pull up and you're in this community. We all live in the same apartments, and everyone is just so fun. And you get into rehearsals, and I was actually an actor technician, so when we weren't rehearsing, we were putting the set together and everything. And it was a really, really intense summer. You're on the beach and it's hot, and there's sand, the stage is sand. You're running around in period costumes and doing all these crazy things. And I got really lucky that the person who was brought in to do The Burning Girl was someone I didn't know him before, but knew of him through the stage combat world, a gentleman named Jason Tate. He came in, and they chose another dancer to do The Burning Girl, but they needed an understudy for it. And I had already asked, I was like, hey, I know I'm not doing The Burning Girl, but I'm really kind of interested in how you guys do this. Can I sit in? And since I was there, they were like, hey, why don't you be like the understudy for it? So I got to learn how to do it, and I actually got to do it 2 shows a week. I think I did about 22 burns throughout the entire series. Throughout the entire summer. I'm still in the film world. And it was, a really cool burn on an apron, and the way that they lit it and everything. It was just beautiful feature in the battle. And that was one of the first things I ever did that was beyond just fighting. It was the first more stunt side of things that I did, and was just really, really incredible. I can't thank them enough for that experience. And so I was actually in the Outer Banks for about 6 months. After we finished, I stuck around. I worked at the Outback in the Outer Banks for a few months, kind of get my life together. And in that course of that time, it was when I decided to move to Atlanta, because I was between Atlanta and Chicago, and I was like, Atlanta's warm. And here I am. I've been here 6 years. Actually, 6 years yesterday. I figured out was the anniversary. Outer Banks is a very, very dear place in my heart. It was, I was there at a time, the hardest time of your life, just getting out of college, trying to figure yourself out, and to be there and be telling such a great story with so many amazing artists, and the pageantry of it. I was in the pavon dresses at the beginning of the show in the Queen Elizabeth's court, and then all the way to getting set on fire, and then you're in rags at the end of it, as we kind of go off into history, as we kind of have got a cliffhanger ending. And I was really, really grateful to be a part of that for the year that I was there. It was back in 2015.
Oh man, that does sound amazing. And so when Lance called you that first call, did he tell you then that you'd be um Burning Girl or understudy
No,
for that or anything? Or when did
no,
you, because you knew about it, you said, and kind of
actually,
that had your eye on that.
he told me that about that once we finally were able to get on the phone
Oh, okay.
together, just as kind of like yeah, we're doing this really cool thing, everyone's really excited about it. And I did express to him that I had stage combat
Hmm.
experience, and that actually did lead me to in my regular track in the show, when I was just me, I got
Hmm.
to have a little bit more featured fighting than the women in the show at the time used to have. I got to beat up one of our warriors with a hatchet, which was at that point they didn't have a lot of women doing stuff like
Yeah.
that, so that was a lot of fun. um, and also Jason Tate did some classes with us that summer, and so we got to spend some more time studying some of the weapons that I enjoyed. So
Oh man, that is awesome. And so I guess, like you said before that, when it was mostly combat related stuff, that was a lot of choreography and everything. But like you said, this really sounds like it stepped it up a little bit. I mean, you described a little bit about the Burning Girl, and that is one of the iconic moments of the play. And they didn't
mm-hmm.
do it every year. And yeah, I think that was when they brought it back after a
Mm-hmm.
few years of a time of not doing it for a while, because it is real fire. It's not, it's
Yeah,
um,
it's something you have to invest the time into getting the right people to set up and train everybody,
yeah.
getting all the right equipment. There's gel and layers, and the costumes have to be specially made. So it is a bit of an investment, but they were really at the time really dedicated to bringing that back, because it had been a classic part of the
Hmm.
show very early, since its early existence. And I
Hmm.
heard some stories that it wasn't quite so safe.
Yeah,
But
I imagine. Yeah.
yeah, and we never had any accidents or anything. We were pretty a pretty well-oiled machine. Though I will say I have the honor of being the only one to fall at any point, because we were on a sand stage and I was
Yeah.
in 2 layers of skirts. And I remember it was actually the night we were recording for the archives, and I was running towards the front of the stage, and my skirt got tripped out, and my hands kind of hit the sand,
Oh.
and I was able to kind of get up and keep running, but I had sand on my hands, and you don't want your hands to be near fire at that point, because that can meld to your skin and everything. So I
Yeah.
just did like the rest of the thing just like kind of like this.
Oh
uh,
man.
yeah, and that was my honor that year, of being the first one to take a little bit of a tumble. But hey, I'm a stunt girl, so.
Oh man, like baptism by fire, like literally there. It sounds like baptism by
Little
fire,
bit.
pretty literally.
Yeah.
And you say from there it was pretty much on to Atlanta and going all in on this.
Hmm.
And so you were again looking for stunt work specifically and looking to do stunt work in film at this point.
Hmm. Yeah, it took a little while, like about a year and a half,
Yeah.
for me to kind of fully make the switch. I ended
Hmm.
up doing a live show the next year that was at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg. That was a
Hmm.
sword fight. It
Yep.
was a Three Musketeers show. So that was kind of when I had the first little like, okay, I think I'm ready to kind of focus in on this.
Hmm.
And like I said, I gotten really lucky, gotten in with some small groups that were training new people, and starting to pick up small skills here and there, and also just getting my body ready, because like I said, I hadn't really been very athletic growing up, and that was a big thing for me, was learning how to train and condition and get yourself to the point of being able to do some of these things, because they're not easy. And I think I remember the year that I got my first SAG stunt job. I told myself, I was like, I just want one day. I want to see if I can get like one day of SAG work like this whole year.
Yeah.
And it happened. It was on a little show called Superstition that was on the Sci-Fi Channel for one season, and I got to be this dead body that came off of a morgue table
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
fought these main actors. And to this day, well, actually, I'm starting to get some cooler stuff, but it's one of the coolest clips I have in my reel, was from this first job. But it was a case of like, I got my first job, I got my SAG card, and then I didn't have another job for a whole year.
Hmm.
And it's just hustling and networking and meeting people and training more and getting your name out there, and it takes time. And my
Hmm.
mentor told me at one point, when she's like, how long did you go to school for acting? I was like, I went to school for 4 years. She's like, this is the same thing.
Yeah.
You're getting your master's degree in stunt work right now. It's not going to happen instantly.
Hmm.
And so I got like my second job like a year later, and then, you know, was still pushing and still hustling. And then one day I got a text from Aaron Armstrong to work on this little film that we're talking about. So
and yes, and that brings us to this little film and your arrival in Haddonfield, so to speak.
Yeah,
it was 2019 when they shot Halloween Kills, and I guess so yeah, let's go to 2018. Talk us through that. Talk us through that phone call and how all that came to be.
There's one thing I want to throw out there. Actually, in 2018, maybe 2017, I went to a meet and greet in Atlanta with the gentleman who coordinated the first Halloween. His name was Ron Hutchinson. And that was just everyone show up to a restaurant and bring your headshot, and you can talk to him for 5 minutes, you know, and like tons of people showed up. We got kicked out of the restaurant. It was a whole thing. And then also I'm friends with Cody Robinson, who is a stuntman here in Atlanta, who ended up doubling on the first Halloween for James whenever he did the Stairwell. I actually babysat his kids the night that him and his wife went to go see that Halloween movie, which are like, those are little things that I forget along the way. So I actually got, Cody's a great guy. So I actually got, it was a text message, and it was just like, hey, Rachel, my name's Aaron Armstrong. I'm working on a show in Wilmington. Are you available on these dates? And at that point, you know, I'm a baby stunt person, so I don't ask questions. I'm just like, yes, I'm available. You know, that's it. And he's like, cool, I can use you. And I remember I was actually between shifts at my restaurant job at the time on the phone with my friend, and I was like, yeah, I'm working on this project in Wilmington. I'm not sure what it is. And she goes, Rachel, it's the Halloween sequel. And I was like, oh, like my friend was there. I was like, oh, cool. All right, that's awesome. And I didn't know Aaron, but I knew, looked him up and knew his reputation and everything. So I was really, really excited. And it was my third or fourth job at the time. So I was very, very green whenever I got it. And so originally I was only supposed to work, I think, 2 days. And then I got a call that the schedule had changed and they literally needed to travel me the next day to Wilmington. I had to get all of my restaurant shifts covered and head on out. It was the first time I'd been traveled for anything, so I knew nothing. And showed up, and I worked for about a week. My first day, it was just me and a bunch of stunt guys. And the first thing that I shot was all hospital stuff.
Oh man.
Yeah, which was very, very intense. Oh, and at that point, I didn't even know. I knew I was doubling. I didn't know who I was doubling for until I got my first call sheet. And I'll take this moment to point out my shirt here, the lovely Miss Judy Greer. And so this shirt I actually got from a place called Super Yaki. It's a cool little t-shirt shop. They do like really niche t-shirts. And I came across this on their website about a year ago, around the time Halloween Kills was supposed to come out, and just immediately started cackling because this is such a deep reference to me, myself. Yeah. So I actually DM'd her and just told her like how funny I thought it was and that I would try to get it whenever I had the money. And she actually just sent it to me. And so,
oh man.
Yeah, and also there's another one called Judy Greer. Judy Greer should have been the lead. So shout out to Super Yaki for the awesome niche t-shirts. I've been wearing them for a year and I love them so much. So I showed up and it was a bunch of stunt guys, only one of whom I knew. There was a couple guys from New York, a couple guys from North Carolina, one or two guys that came in and out of Atlanta. And the first day I wasn't Judy. We were rehearsing something, and then they threw me in as like extra bodies in those mob scenes. The
chaos at the hospital, I guess.
Yes, which were I cannot, like, they were very, very intense. Just the amount, like hundreds of extras, and just everyone moving around with all these different characters. And that was first day Jamie Lee Curtis was there, obviously, and then my second day that I worked was the first day I worked as Judy, as Stunt Karen, which is my favorite title I've ever had.
The Stunt Karen.
Stunt Karen, and we did A lot of the stuff that I got brought in to do, Judy and Jamie are both very capable, and Andy as well. You know, really, really, you know, willing to jump in there and get gritty. So, you know, they mainly use doubles for big stuff. But I'll tell the story of me meeting Judy for the first time.
Yeah.
We had been off to the corner while they were rehearsing a scene, and me and Ashley Riddick, who is the double for Jamie, were going to just give them knee pads for the scene that we were doing. And I walked up to her with these knee pads in my hand, like kind of like nervous, kind of shaking, because I love her and just a huge fan. And she looks at me and she looks at Brian, who is our hairstylist, and goes, "Why is she so much younger and prettier than me?" And I just like covered my face, and I was just like, "Oh my gosh!" And she goes, "You could be my sister," you know. And it wasn't just the wiggatry and the outfit, you know. We had very similar features, and she was just such a dear. You know, they were all just so kind, and we had a lot of fun. You know, it was the first thing that we did was the one in the hallway when they're trying to be like, no, it's not him, it's not him.
Yeah.
And then you know, Jamie Lee Curtis like knees the doctor into the stomach, which was James Northrup, who's an amazing stunt guy, and he took it like a champ. she was just nailing him, and that was a lot of fun. And then the next thing that I did actually was it was all the stuff in the stairwell.
Oh man.
Yeah, which was again absolute chaos. And I was actually not supposed to work that day. I was on hold. Business, you know, biz term. I was on hold, and so I was just at my hotel, and I'd like gone for a run that morning and had my phone in my pocket. Probably the only 15 minutes of the day I don't have my phone sitting next to me. And I pull it out, and I'm like on this beach in North Carolina, and it's a million missed calls from the second AD, from Aaron, a bunch of text messages like, "Hey, we need you to get to set right now." And these things happen, especially as like scheduling and shots change and everything. So I remember like I rushed to set, rushed me through the works. I get there, and they're like, "Okay, this is all the stuff that Judy's done establishing." You know, it was you know, all the running up and down the stairs, and then they're like, "Okay, we need you to fall," and I was like, "Got it." And it was really great because you know, I was working with Aaron and David Gordon Green to kind of craft that right to fit in with what we'd already shot. And it was the first time I think I spoke directly to David. And what I really liked is like he's so experienced, like he kind of spoke stunt and was able to kind of describe what he wanted, and you know, got it in a couple takes. And then they had already shot they shot the big stair fall with the two girls that came after me, which was such a cool little clip, and that's definitely my favorite thing that I got to do in that. And then we proceeded up the stairs, up to the hallway, and all the scenes with Tivoli, and those had initially been planned to be a little bit different. It was initially planned to be a little more violent towards Karen with the mob and everything, because I had been told like I needed to bring like extra back pads and stuff because we were going to be doing some big pushes. And but when they got to rehearsing it, they were like, you know what, you know, the mob's goal at that point was not her. It was who they thought was Michael Myers. And so, you know, we changed it up a little bit, and just kind of got to be there as support for Judy. And kind of that's a lot of what our jobs are as stunt doubles, specifically, is making sure, you know, we're there to make the actor look good. We're there to make them feel comfortable and safe, and just be there like, hey, I'm here if you need me, and you know, we'll make this awesome. But that was just my first week there. Yeah.
That sounds like a pretty exciting first week, and that, like you said, that's definitely one of the most intense sequences in the whole film. I mean, I really felt that, especially on that first viewing. I mean, it's just so intense as everybody's getting amped up, and you, the viewer, knows what's going on, and then about the mistaken identity, and it's just, you know, it was really heartbreaking. And actually do want to take a second to talk about Ross Bacon, who played Tivoli, who I met him at base camp. He was out front smoking cigarettes, talking to one of the other some of the other day players, and he was just a really fun, kind guy with a million stories. And you know, he had been in the first Halloween as in the mental institution scene, and then he'd actually been in Righteous Gemstones as like this creepy clown, which I went and watched later, and I was like, oh my god, you were great. And they kind of like, David and their whole team just kind of like fell in love
thought he was so great, and so they kind of wrote this for him, and you know, he did such an amazing job and was so kind to me. And you know, when I found out he passed before this movie came out, it really kind of hit my soul. You know, because at the time I was, like I said, I was very green and very nervous. I'm a pretty naturally nervous, anxious person. And it wasn't because of this, you know, what we were doing or the situation or anything. It's just my nature. And we were shooting some of those scenes up top, and I would, you know, I would go in and check in on Judy between takes, and then to kind of be out of the way of all the extras, I would tuck back in this one hallway, and they had Ross's chair set up there, so he didn't have to keep going up and down stairs. And we were just sitting there, and he's just like, "You're doing such a great job," and you know, like everyone like. Everyone thinks you're really great, and I think you're a really great double for Judy. And he was just so genuine and sweet. So I just wanted to, you know, speak about him, and you know, I knew what happened to his character and had heard stories. They'd already shot the Crazy High Fall and everything, and he just did a wonderful job. But to be in those scenes and know what was going on, I'd done some takes in the crowd when they first start going after him, and everything was very intense. And at one point was when we were shooting by the doors, and they were pounding on the doors. And Anthony Michael Hall actually, who had introduced himself to me, and I was like, oh my God, Anthony Michael Hall, because I love Brat Pack, I love Breakfast Club, I love 16 Candles. And he had said to me, he's like, by the way, you did a really good job on that fall yesterday. And again, I'm like, oh my God. And they were doing his coverage, and he was like, hey, why don't we give Judy a break? Rachel, do you want to stand here and be my eyeline? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And, you know, kind of got to be there and hold that scene with him while all the extras were going around. And like, it was, I actually got lightheaded because of the energy and the heat and the intensity of what was going on. And like, I had to step outside and take a few breaths, you know, because it was really crazy. And that's also one of the reasons, those scenes, I kind of felt why this movie would resonate with people. Especially as we moved through the pandemic and everything we went through in 2020, you know, it's like that. I think that they didn't realize that they were going to be shooting something that was so timely. But I think it had a you know, that mob mentality of a community that's been traumatized. You know, I thought that they did a really good job with that. And I've actually got a little sticker right there that says "Evil Dies Tonight." It was given to me by one of the crew members.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, it definitely is an intense scene in the film, and seemed intense. And yeah, to hear you describe it, that it was so intense actually during the filming, and that there was a lot of that tension in the air, literally. Was that just they told everybody that this is the moment? And I mean, because I guess they filmed Anthony's speech as Tommy kind of all around that time too, so all the extras are there. They heard all that being shot, so they're getting into character in their own way. And it was all shot pretty much in sequence, I guess.
Yes, because my first day that I was there, I remember seeing them shooting his speech and all of the prep leading up to that. And I was in some of those crowd scenes, and I didn't personally witness if they actually like specifically spoke to the extras about but you know, there's something about when you get that many people with a specific action, especially something that is so emotional and intense inside of you, that it's just that feeling of being in a crowd like that can really kind of hit you, especially if you're kind of sensitive like I am. So yeah. And the extras, there was, you know, same extras pretty much throughout the whole shoot, and they did a hell of a job.
Yeah, and I definitely appreciate you speaking about Ross Bacon too, and giving that firsthand account, because he is somebody that unfortunately, you know, passed away before the film was released, and would have loved to talk to him right now and share this moment with him.
I would have loved
really having, you know, he did, like you said, such a great performance in that role, and it's so heartbreaking. And
I would have loved to have seen you interview him.
I would have loved to, absolutely. He sounds really cool. And we talked to Diva Tyler earlier this year too, and she also spoke very highly of him. And yeah, so definitely an awesome talent there, and very missed.
Yeah, and I also know the crew, that crew works together a lot, and they worked, on the previous one and Righteous Gemstones and things like that. And I know that they were really hit by that as well. It's actually through one of the crew members that I found out about it. So yeah, but he's, I like to think that he's,
yeah,
looking down on us and hopefully enjoying enjoying it just as much as we are. So.
I'm sure he is. I'm sure he is
Sure
enjoying his moment. So that was the first week.
That's just the first week.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the other scenes that you were a part of, or even were just there, like you said, kind of, around and watching being filmed?
Mm-hmm. So the next time that I was there, we were on the Michael Myers house set,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd actually seen it the week before because I worked on what was Jamie Lee Curtis's last day of the whole shooting, and so we went to take a cast and crew photo and take a video in front of Michael Myers' house.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember just walking on that stage and kind of seeing it and recognizing how iconic it was, and I was like, this is really cool. It was the first time I was really a part of something that was kind of iconic. That is as iconic as the Halloween franchise is. And so when I got there, I remember the first thing I saw my first day back, they were doing a shot in the window, and looking back, I'm not sure if it was a 1978 Michael or current day Michael, but it was just him standing in the window, and I was like, whoa, like that's just that right there is just so crazy to look at. And actually, I think I've got a picture of it somewhere. But yeah, up until that point, I hadn't met Jim Courtney. And I hadn't seen him. I hadn't even really experienced that side of what the story was going to be. I'd heard stories from some of the other stunt guys who'd worked on some of those other scenes, but I hadn't been there for that. And I was lucky. Lydia Hand, who is Andy's double, was there that day, and she doubled on both movies. And again, we hadn't met before, but we knew each other. And she was so nice to kind of have someone else there, another woman, younger woman there to kind of guide me through what we were doing. And when I got there, they were finishing up like the stair fall that she does down and breaks her leg, and all the stuff with Cameron and Cameron's death. And Dylan Arnold was so much fun. We had a lot of fun that day because it was like me, Andy, me, Lydia, and then Cameron's double Ben, and then Judy and Andy and Cameron, and we're all kind of around the same age, and so we kind of like felt like we were just like kids, like off in the corner, like giggling and stuff. And Andy is such a sweetheart and very, very smart, and was actually, I have a funny story about Andy. When we were taking that crew photo, she ran in at the last second, and she actually ran in and jumped into my lap. And it was because she thought I was Judy. And it was actually, if you see our big cast and crew photo, she's right next to me. And I always say, I'm like, that's the kind of feedback you want to hear as a double, for sure.
That's the best compliment, right? That's pretty good.
So when we actually met for the first time, she was just like, I just really want to say, like, I didn't realize that it wasn't Judy when I jumped into your lap. And I'm like, it's fine. And so we got into the fight at the stairs when Karen comes in. And again, that was a day, I think Judy did all the stuff with the pitchfork and everything. Judy did a lot of that, and it was so fun to watch them, and so, again, so intense, like all of seeing Andy, just do it, just giving those really, really great performances. And all the stuff with the pitchfork was so fun. Jim posted, did you see the video that Jim posted recently?
I saw the one that he just posted of rehearsing with the firefighters.
Yes, he posted one on Halloween though, and so they had this rig so that the pitchfork could like be stuck into his back.
Oh, I did see that. Yes, where he's like, and everybody fell down when he turned around.
Yeah, so we joked, it was like we caught a whale, or we caught a Jim, and I completely forgot that we shot that until he showed it. But if you watch it, I like pull the camera back, and it's all the doubles and our stunt coordinator, I think our second AD, and like, hey Jim, and he spins around and we all hit the ground. So we had a lot of fun. And again, it was my first time meeting Jim, and he so kind and sweet and such a gentleman. And so great to work with, and just really, was taking ownership of that character, and him having him being a stuntman, you know,
Mhm.
he's, you know, able to talk to us and talk about his needs for things more than most actors probably would. And I remember the one thing I had to do, I had when she stomps his head, they used me for that. And so that's my one little bit in that thing. And I also couldn't remember if I was the one who pulled the mask off or not. I don't think it was me, because I just read an interview with Judy where she was talking about that and having to be careful with the mask. But again, you know, what was just so amazing is being so green at that time. It was my first film, but to be watching these incredible actors and actresses, you know, giving these great performances was just, it was such an honor just to be there and to watch, and to also be able to talk to them and the stunt performers as well, and ask questions and learn. And we had a lot of fun that day. And then the next day was my last day, and it was just me that day. And I had no idea what we were shooting that day. On the call sheet, it said, oh, and it was October 31st, 2019.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, on the call sheet, the scene just said Karen in the Shape dance. And so I remember I got to set, I get through the works, and I looked to Aaron, and I was just like, so what are we doing? And he goes, no one told you? And I was like, no. And what are we doing today? And he pulls out his phone to the previs and shows me the stabbing of Karen. And internally I was like, wait, what? I was like, wait, no, there goes my job scare. Like, no, you can't do this.
Yeah.
And I was heartbroken, but it, you know,
Yeah.
it was really cool. And we did, it was pretty much the last thing we shot that day. And we did shots, you know, both of us doing it, obviously her from the front. I did a couple takes from behind. And again, I was kind of in that nervous zone that, like, it didn't even register with me at that time that I was like, I'm getting killed by Michael Myers right now. Like, and like, I remember like seeing his mask and the knife and stuff and stuff. But I remember like zeroing in on like a bit of paint that was on the mask. That was like the thing I was doing to kind of center myself, and then to look back and then again see how it turned out in the movie. And I was just like, I've been killed by Michael Myers. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And but you know, I was, like I said, heartbroken, and that's a secret I had to keep for a very long time, because people, you know, were always asking that did know the series. They're like, well, there's going to be another one. Do you think you're going to work on the other one? And I'd be like, I don't know. You know, maybe I will, maybe I won't. But you know, Judy was really, you know, game for all of that, and we had a lot of fun.
Oh man, well, yeah, I mean, that is amazing to hear. Well, let's just unpack that for a minute. Well, first of all,
please.
the stomping of Michael's head. I mean, that there, I was going to be like, well, I mean, how many people get to kind of get the better of Michael there in a scene? And you know, of course, Karen's a character that's kind of had two notable gotcha moments now. But so you got to do that. I was going to ask if you were doing any of the running from Michael when he's chasing her, but I guess that was all Judy in those scenes, because they're pretty quick and but I love those shots of James even without his mask.
Yeah, and I was sitting off to the side. That's where they had our chairs. And again, I talk about, you know, his stature and the way that he carries himself, and how simplistic the movement of the shape is, and that is what makes it so terrifying. And you know, he was all bloodied up and burned and everything, and I just was watching him take these long loping strides across the street. And you know, she's sprinting and he's just walking. And it was really just that moment of like, this character is so intense just in his being. And you know what I kind of enjoyed, because I didn't know about all of the other crazy stuff that they had done. I'd been, you know, brought in kind of late in the game,
like the other kills and stuff like that. The other
kills, and how they're just elevating constantly his power. And I think it shows, you know, this idea that Michael is not, you know, they've kind of simplified his backstory in this version of the movie, and it's just like, he's just this absolute. He is this kind of personification of evil that can't be defeated. And you you know, when he takes out 11 firefighters and like, you know, is getting shot and burned multiple times. He kills about 6 people who are, you know, who just beat him to death. You know, I didn't know about Tommy. And that was also heartbreaking because I thought Anthony Michael Hall did such a wonderful job as Tommy. And
yeah, me too.
Yeah, just really, really, and he was, like I said, really sweet person to work with. Jim is, like I said, he's just owns that character so much. And, you know, watching his interviews and everything and the pride that he has and attachment to that character, I'm really honored that I got to be a part of that. Yeah, and to get to crush his head a little bit.
Yeah, you got to crush his head, and like you said, showing up on that set and seeing the Myers house for the first time, because you said earlier that I guess you'd seen the original 78 Halloween and the 2018 one at by the time you were working on Kills. So you were, you know, you were familiar with Michael Myers and that much of the mythology, at least the current continuity and all that. So you knew the significance of the Myers house and how they had meticulously recreated it. I mean, on my second viewing, I just was paying so much attention to the details and so many little details from the flashback to the 40 years later. And so that was the first time you said you really kind of felt the magnitude of this is really big to a lot of people, and this is going to be a mind-blowing part of the movie.
For sure. And you know, I think just the iconography, the imagery of these movies of Michael and, you know, the house and the knife and just things like that are kind of just in our cultural zeitgeist. And I consider myself pretty pop culturally aware. So even if I'm not like deeply invested in a fandom, I can recognize when something is significant, and also just like figuring out, you know, through how the story was being told, and, you know, that they were bringing all of these characters back. I did work one day with where Kyle Richards was on set, which was kind of cool. My favorite story about that is her, we were at lunch and she had a cafeteria tray getting lunch like the rest of us. It was like a real housewife, but she's sitting here.
She's a real cast member too, I guess.
Exactly. And
she was
wonderful. I loved her scenes where she fought Michael. And yeah, it was, and you could tell the love on the set of from the crew that was really, you know, working very hard to make sure that that the fans were going to enjoy it. For sure.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, and I've heard that from a lot of people I've talked to, that the crew, you know, are very passionate. And going back to 2018, I talked to a lot of people about how passionate everybody in front and behind the camera, they were all there for the right reasons. So Halloween Day, you said October 31st, literally in 2019, and it's your final day of shooting, and you don't even know what a monumental scene it is for the character, and this is a huge character in this current continuity we have. I mean, Karen, she played such an important role in those final moments of that 2018 film that just really, I always say those moments, that's when Karen became one of the absolute most interesting characters in this whole franchise.
She's had such an interesting journey, you know, from you know, being this very anti-Halloween and, you know, trying to rebelling against her mother.
Christmas sweater.
The Christmas sweater, which I had to like remember. I was like, wait, why is she wearing a Christmas? Oh, right, because she hates Halloween. Which, by the way, doing stunts in North Carolina in October in a sweater, exciting. I was sweating like crazy. But to see that journey and the scenes between all of those women, these strong women, you know, warriors in their own way, who had you know, been traumatized, but, you know, her realizing that something had to happen, you know, like we have to do something about this or else, you know, we're all gonna die. And you know, I loved the scene where she's was washing the blood off her hands and off of her ring and everything, and to see the journey that character went through, and the speech that she gave with Michael's mask. Again, I was off to the side for that. Just incredible performance from her. And you know, I knew obviously that there was something significant happening that day. You know, the call sheet said, you know, locked set, no guests, no anything like that. and just due to the vagueness of the description of the scene, I knew it was something. But it's like, does she have to die? Are we sure? Are we sure? Yeah, I won't go into those theories because I have personal investment in that. You know, I know Judy had such a good time working on that project, and you know, I would really, you know, love to work with her again, for sure. But it was hard for me because like I was holding on to these photos of me and her for 2 years, and I can't post them, can't do anything with them until it's out there. So.
Oh man, and like you said, you're there, you're filming this scene, and it's a shock to you. You know, it's meant to be a shock to the audience, obviously, and that's when you're really realizing that this is going to be one of those, you know, scenes in Halloween, because it's not just any character. I mean, all the Michael Myers kills, franchise fans will tell you, they're all important and they're all great in their own way. But you know, I mean, certain characters, iconic characters, and important characters. So this is a big moment. It's the finale moment in a movie called Kills, literally in the title. This is the big one. I mean, and so there you are. There's James, you know, stabbing. So I mean, how could you even keep? I guess you couldn't think about it too much at the moment.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it was also a moment where I was, like I said, I am a nervous person. I deal with anxiety, and having been so young, and I learned a lot of how to kind of keep that in check, definitely through that process. And I was also like sleep deprived and overly caffeinated, and just I think I was you know, you get to this point where you're like, and you just have to cut out all the noise. You can't be thinking about, you know, the significance of a scene in a grand, you know, just in that moment you have to think about what your action is, what your choreography is, and what you're being asked to do. And you know, I would say, like, I wish I had been a little more in the moment, but luckily, and I think even especially like through the pandemic, I've had a lot of time to kind of reflect on that and on the importance and the significance, and how grateful I am that I had that opportunity. And that's you know, Aaron you know, took a chance on me for that, and just being so grateful. And you know, I'm a fan. I have my things that I am obsessed with. I'm a big Marvel person, you know, comic books and all those different things, Lord of the Rings, and like just with anything, like you know that these movies are being made for the core fans, and you just want them to like it and hopefully agree with the decisions that are being made. And again, that was why I was so happy that this was received so well.
Absolutely. And with that scene, I'm just curious, when you were filming, and you know, like you said, Judy would be used, and then they'd use you for stuff. Do you remember any direction or anything that you heard? Because when I watch it, and other fans have commented on this, like I feel like they were definitely kind of channeling the Judith kill in the original film, the first kill with young Myers a little bit. It's in the same spot, and it's not shot exactly, but it's similar. And then other people, a lot of people have pointed out that some of the Karen's hand moments, it's almost like the Psycho shower scene.
Very
too.
Psycho, yeah.
So, and I see both similarities to both in there. Do you recall that being like a conscious thing that they were trying to channel at all, that you heard? Or?
If it was, that wasn't a part of conversations that I was in. But you know, thinking back, like the choreography, it was like 3 stabs to the arm, and then you know, some slashes, and initially they had a little more of like a thrusting motion in the stomach that Judy was not quite a fan of, and so they kind of adjusted it a little bit. But looking back and thinking about how they were shooting it, and I actually just went back and watched some of the scenes before this interview. You know, they shot it very differently from the other kills in the movie. You know, it's kind of like very operatic, dark scene, and yeah, I definitely see a lot of Psycho in there, which I think is a nice little nod to Jamie Lee Curtis and everything. And I haven't watched the original in a long time, but yeah, it was. Those were conversations. They weren't ones that I were a part of, but I wouldn't put it past David and that whole team and Aaron to be putting those references in there.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And and you've mentioned working with Aaron Armstrong, stunt coordinator, of course, and of
Hmm.
course did some performing as the Shape in the flashbacks as well.
Hmm.
We've not met him yet. Hope to here soon. But
Hmm.
can you talk a little bit about working with him? And James spoke about working with him, especially in light of, there's been a very tragic story in the news recently, and there's some gunfire, not so much with Karen, but
Hmm.
there's been a lot of set safety in the news, obviously. And James spoke a little bit. Obviously, this was filmed 2 years ago,
Hmm.
before all this that's in the news now. But can you talk just a little bit about working with him and the feeling on the set as far as being around the stunt community, which is that's
Hmm.
your industry, that is specifically your department, and can you just talk a little bit about that, the set safety and working with Aaron in that respect?
Yeah, absolutely. Aaron, like I said, I hadn't met him before. I think we texted and we spoke on the phone a few times. He's quiet and very focused when he's working, but he had a lot of people around him that either had done previs or were there as as a part of the stunt team that he'd worked with for a very long time, and whereas they were able to put things together very, very quickly. And he definitely is the kind of person, he knows what he wants, and will work with you to get there. I everything safety wise in my scenes, we always, if we could use mats, we would use mats. We were
Mm-hmm.
constantly putting pads on actors if we needed it, talking about, you don't have to do this if you don't want to, but if you can, this is the way that we can do it. We can have you in the shot. And no, I didn't work with any firearms on that. I know that they did in other scenes. And
Mm-hmm.
I with what has happened recently, I am by no means an expert. I can't say anything that hasn't already been said. Our job at the end of the day, not just as stunt people, but anyone on a movie set, is we're there to make art and get everybody home back to their families safely.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we do. And that's kind of what I love about the stunt community, is that we do this crazy, violent, weird art form, but the whole goal is just to take care of each other and make sure that everyone's okay and walks away. And a lot of the guys that I worked with, every person that I worked with was so kind to me in terms of letting me ask questions and maybe like kind of like nudge like, hey, you should go check on Judy, or maybe you should check on this, wink wink. Which was just so wonderful, because a lot of our business is mentorship and guidance, and sometimes, especially when you're young, you're afraid to ask for that. But it was a really, really great team to be a part of. I met some awesome people, and yeah, it was felt very, very safe. And I knew that's a top priority for Aaron and David and everyone as well.
Very cool. So then, of course, filming wraps. That's your last day of filming this epic scene, and filming wraps, and then the whole world a few months later comes to a stop, and everything changes, and we go through 2020, and there's a little delay in the release by about 12 months, and the world keeps changing and keeps going through stuff, and then so now here we are. It's 2021. The film is finally released. When did you see the final finished film the first time, and what did you think watching it all together for the first time?
I saw it opening day. I wasn't able to go to like a midnight showing or anything, but I saw it opening day,
Mm-hmm.
evening. I saw it at a drive-in here in Atlanta because
Nice.
that just felt so perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And I had one of my good friends went with me, and I loved it. I just everything. Got to see scenes that I wasn't a part of and see this world really develop and these amazing performances. And I knew what my scenes were, obviously, and seeing my fall on the stairs for the first time, and just I'm like a child, and this is my first film. Like, I have worked, and my jobs before and after have largely been television, and been a part of some incredible projects, but there's something about your first like big theatrical release, and I heard multiple people say this before, there's just something so cool about that. And remembering memories or remember seeing things or hearing things. It's like, oh, that makes sense now, because you only get part of the story when you're doing this. And then my friend, you know, being able to enjoy it with me as well. I remember there was one funny thing. One of the Johns at one point, like hits the pitchfork and is like, you know, to the kids, like, I'll get you with the pitchfork. And I went, up. And he goes, is that foreshadowing? I was like, it is. It is. I didn't know that they said pitchfork like that. And then to get to the end and again know what was happening, and it was like, and there she goes, and she's bleeding on the ground. You know, there goes Karen. And then to watch the credits roll, and the video is on my Instagram because I was videoing it so I could screenshot it later. They get to the stunt team, and I'm listed right at the top, right in the center between Jamie's double and Andy's double. And you hear me just have a very authentic, oh my God, I'm right there. Which is just so me in so many ways. And to see it up there nestled between two other stunt women that I respected with all of these other incredible people was just such an honor. In the iconic font as well, you know, while the music's playing, it was so wonderful. And you know, this is probably the first or maybe the second thing that has been so big. I was on one episode of WandaVision. It was December 2019. It was a last second call to do this overnight shoot. I just knew it was going to be a bunch of witches and all that. And I said, I'm such a big Marvel nerd, you know, love the MCU. So to get that opportunity and then to show up, and it was this amazing scene with Catherine Hahn, and to see her doing something different. And it was a bunch of stunt women, which is really rare for a lot of women to be on set at the same time. So we just had a blast. And these two projects were, you know, kind of what helped me get through the pandemic, of like knowing that they were coming whenever I had any doubts about myself. And then for the show to be so good, and then our scene with Agatha and her coven to be so amazing was just an absolute honor for me to finally take my first step into the MCU. So hopefully not the last.
There you go.
And, you know, a lot of people, you know, your friends start being like, oh my God, I saw you were in WandaVision. Oh my God, I saw you were in Halloween. And so those first person, which was our friend Lance, you know, for those to start to come in, and also seeing like people who are really big horror fans and getting to finally talk about it after 2 years and getting that kind of firsthand, you know, feedback was just absolutely amazing. Because I've been walking around with my Halloween Kills stunt team shirt for 2 years, you know, and finally I felt like I could get some flex on them.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, like you said, now you can finally, the cat's out the bag. You can finally talk about that shocking ending, and man, I mean, to have to keep those secrets. But I would still say never as far as Karen being back, only because, I mean, we saw flashbacks in this movie back in '78. There's always flashbacks and dream sequences and all.
I had a cop get a revival, you know.
Yes, exactly. There's all kinds of ways that she could be featured in the next film in Halloween Ends, possibly.
Yeah. Well, now I'm such a fan of the series. You know, I'm very interested to see what their plan is for this next chapter, and I know that they've made some adjustments due to the pandemic and the timing shift and all of that. So I think, like, first and foremost, I'm just like, what can they do next, and what can this team do next? And you know, I'll be there probably opening night, just like I was this time. You know, so.
Awesome. Yeah, we're gonna be there opening night too, obviously, and we'll be right there with you. And I mean, yeah, as tragic and as sad as it is, I mean, David Gordon Green said a long time ago that this would be his Empire Strikes Back, and I feel like they had to deliver on that. And it's also called Kills, so you got to end with a big one, a meaningful one, and it does set up that third chapter to really, you know, to have a showdown there. And but yeah, I'm super curious too, because now it's going to take place 4 years later in like real time 2022. So what's a post 2018 Haddonfield look like? That's also I presume also a post pandemic and you know, everything that we've been through. What's that world look like?
And I'm curious, you know, revisiting the character of Allison, and you know, now that, because she lost both her parents, and where Lori is at, in the town itself, and what happens to Michael, like all of those things. I'm I also would be interested, like, are they going to throw Kyle Richards, are they going to throw Lindsay in there? There's a lot of fun possibilities. And
yeah, I hope they do. And yeah, that'd be great to bring her back in. I mean, because I feel like they kind of need to now. But yeah, I can't wait to see what David Gordon Green has up his sleeve and how he's going to handle it. But man, for a town that was shook up as bad as they were for the last 40 years, I mean, I can't imagine what Haddonfield's going to look like 4 years after what we just witnessed. But I can't wait to see.
It's one traumatized town. They need they need some therapy.
yes, collectively and
collective group therapy.
Group therapy, absolutely. Yeah, I think they're all going to be in it now. Those that are left, those Allison and Lori and Lindsay, at least. And I don't know who else.
I think that's it. A lot of the articles were like, there's like 3 people.
Well, they got Julian still from the first one, the little boy Jabral who plays Julian in 2018, and he popped up in this one. So I figure maybe bring him back, and we'll see. I'm sure David Gordon Green's got it all covered.
Yeah, hey, we got time to theorize and everything. Yeah,
and we will be.
Yeah, and hopefully we won't have to wait as long.
yes. Hopefully just one year, less than 1 year now. So
yeah.
So what do you have going on now, and what's going on next? I mean, obviously you're in this now. You are in the stunt world. You are part of this community. Do you have projects that you've worked on since Kills that you can talk about, or upcoming things?
Yeah, so I still consider myself a baby in this business. I had a lot of momentum actually going into 2020. I worked on this. I worked on WandaVision. I did some stuff on Legacies, and then of course the pandemic hit, and our business completely changed. But I've been very lucky in 2021 to be getting to have gotten some more work. I did a horror anthology that's on Shudder called Horror Noir. It's a anthology movie of like 6 different stories, and they're all done by Black directors, Black screenwriters, and Black creatives. And actually the coordinator who hired me for that was the one who gave me my first job about 4 years ago. So that came out on Halloween as well, or sorry, around Halloween. And that we play some really fun, weird vampire characters. I'm basically like a hippie flower child, and we got to have a lot of fun on that. I've also done a lot of Lifetime movies recently, smaller budget Lifetime movies, which have been a blast, honestly. Just like a lot of cat fighting and just crazy things like that. I worked on Cobra Kai yesterday, which was another fun world to step into with a really dedicated fandom and a really fun team. And I'm trying to think. I think that's everything at this point. Things, especially in the last month, are things are picking up constantly as these studios are trying to catch up and continue to churn out content in the midst of the pandemic. So I've gotten a lot of calls, things that haven't worked out, unfortunately, whether it's for scheduling or they went with somebody else or various things like that. But I'm just so blessed to be being thought of and to be able to start to put more of my work out into the world. And show also to myself that I can continue to be doing this even in the midst of the world exploding. So yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at, and just excited to be doing more and do more bigger, better things. So
oh man, well I'm excited for you and to follow your career, and I really appreciate you sharing this story with us, because again, it's got just a fun local tie to what we here on the Outer Banks know and love, and with the Lost Colony and just following it through, and you've got just such a different, unique perspective of the making of the film that we don't always get. And you're part of this now. You are part of this Halloween franchise, and so let me be the first to officially welcome you to it.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Absolutely. And like you said, dedicated fan base, a very massive, passionate fan base, very opinionated fan base sometimes. And I'm sure you're starting to feel a little bit of that. And after this interview, I'm sure
you'll feel a whole lot more. And
Oh,
but like I said, this is a huge franchise, and you're part of this legacy now.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so how
crazy.
does that feel, just knowing that here you know, a 43-year-old legacy,
Mm-hmm.
12 going on 13 films strong, still
You know,
breaking records at the box office?
that term you just used right there, legacy, I think that's something we kind of all have in us, wanting to be able to show something to point to for all of your hard work, and something that's going to exist for a long time. And especially when you have something like this, like I said, that is so dear to people, it's it's going to stick in their minds and be a part of this for a very long time. And that's something I'm grateful to add to my legacy, hopefully just the beginning of that legacy. And I really hope to hopefully meet some more fans, and very curious about these fun people that just love watching people get slashed, and are part of such iconic franchise. Yeah, I'm like blushing a little bit, because it was such a long time ago, and like I said, it might not have registered with me at the time, but it really does register with me now, and I'm so grateful for it.
Oh man. Well, this has just been awesome talking to you today. And I mean, I can't thank you enough for sharing your stories with us, and your journey to this point. And I think you're absolutely right. This is just the beginning for you. And yeah, Karen's end is your beginning.
It's my beginning. I love that.
Yeah, and you're gonna be, yeah, that's the perfect way to launch from this. I feel like, an iconic scene like that everybody's going to remember forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even that, my friend who actually went to see it with me, he said that in all like the videos and like fan stuff that he'd seen of people talking about this movie, my like stairfall is in it, and that final scene. And I was like, really? I'm like, all the cool stuff in there, and he's like, yeah. So like people seem to really been drawn to that character, and I'm again very honored to have been a part of portraying that. So
absolutely. And yeah, I'm sure it wouldn't have been the same without you. So you definitely brought a lot to it. And like I said, we're going to be looking forward to following your career now and seeing what's next for you. And just wish you all the best. And look forward to talking again when you've got some other projects going on. And
that'd be awesome.
And maybe talk more about Lost Colony, and come see the Lost Colony on the Outer Banks.
Come see the Lost Colony, yeah. They've been doing some great upgrades, I've heard, recently, updating the show. So yeah, it's a good time. It's a good summer trip to the Outer Banks.
That's right. And that's another legendary franchise you're an alum of now too. So 2 legendary franchises right there that you're already an alum of. But
yeah.
Oh man. So again, just thank you again so much for joining us tonight. This has been great.
Yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate you reaching out, and thank you to all of your viewers and everything for being so supportive of this film that's been in my heart for about 2 years now. So yeah, I hope it's in your hearts as well now. So.
Awesome, it definitely is. And happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.